Pretty Girl Club. Welcome back to the Storytime series. Some of you guys were saying you missed me kind of sharing my story times. So I just want to talk my shit right now. A lot of you guys are like, oh, you should do a reaction to this video. You should do a film analysis on the movie Sinners. Okay, I'm going to get to that. But for now, I just want to talk my shit, okay? I just want to gossip. I want to rant. And I want to go on a vent and get this out of my system because when I was younger, I remember I worked at a call center. And by the way, this story time, it does have to do with exoticals and decentering men because I remember there was this incel basically who literally was tormenting me when I was working at the call center. Okay, so he was an MLS man. So let me start from the beginning. I moved back home with my parents because I was poor and had no money. So I had no money, but I needed a job. So they didn't have any full-time jobs available that were like making a lot of money. And by the way, I'm from a very small town. So the hometown that I lived in, it was not very diverse. There were not as many opportunities as like where I lived before. So long story short, my mom kind of helped me to like get an in at this company, but they didn't have any full-time positions at that exact building that I wanted to work at in my hometown. So all they had was temp jobs. So I literally got hired doing a temp job, working at a call center at this company. And I was already sad because I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe my life has come to this. Like, look at what I'm doing with my life right now. I'm literally working at a call center. Like, what the hell is wrong with me? So I walked into the interview and there was like this older white lady in the interview. And then there was this MLS man. He was around my age, maybe a little bit older. He was probably like, I think in his late 20s or something. I was like in my early 20s at the time. And by the way, this video is inspired by Pretty in Between because she was talking about managers who will use their position of management to like gain access to you. That is exactly what happened to me. Okay, so as soon as I walked into the interview, this MLS guy, he immediately starts smiling like really hard. And I was thinking, oh, okay, maybe maybe he knows my mom. And it turns out they actually did know my mom. So I was like, okay, cool. They're just smiling. He's smiling and being friendly because he knows one of my family members. Because remember, this is a small town. So like if you are well known in the city, then people remember. So I was thinking, oh, he's just smiling because of that. So I go through this interview and the interview goes well. And the way this company worked is like, you don't get interviewed by your direct supervisor. Usually you might get interviewed by like the manager. So you'll get interviewed by the manager and then by HR. So I thought that I would never see that MLS guy again. I thought I would never see him again. I thought he was maybe an HR person or maybe he was like, somebody in a different department that was just kind of interviewing. So I didn't think anything of it. And I walk into work. It turns out this guy, the MLS guy, he is going to be my direct supervisor. So as I started getting like settled in at this job, this guy, he did not directly train me or anything. They had a whole system where it's like, you have to go to this certain place to get trained or whatever to learn how to like answer the phones. And it's a call center. So it's like, what kind of training do you really need? Like, hi, thank you for calling so-and-so company. I hate my life. How can I help you? It's like, you don't really need that much training to work that type of call center job anyway. So this direct manager that I had, the MLS guy, he didn't really interact with me that much because the team, he was managing the entire call center in the back of the office. And then he also managed the front office people. So think of like the receptionist people or kind of like the admins, like the admin assistant. So he was managing all of those people. So I didn't really interact with him that much. But I did notice that he was extremely close with all the other ladies in the office. Like he was very cool with them to the point where you would think that he wasn't their manager. Like that's how much they kind of talked to him. I will say some of those girls, maybe they were like pick-me's or something. The pick-me's at work where it's like anytime you have a manager who is not completely hideous, then you have all these pick-me ass bitches at work who want to be like, oh my God, hi, how's it going? So I feel like maybe that's kind of the energy that some of the ladies were giving. Oh, and by the way, let me describe how this guy looks. Okay, so his name was Darius. I don't care because that's a very common name, so I can say that name. First of all, I have a superstition about the name Darius. Why is there always a guy named Darius who is harassing me? I swear to God, literally, anytime there's a black man, if he's an African American man named Darius, if his name's David, or if his name's Michael, I already know I'm cooked. Oh, his name's Darius? Okay, I'm fucked. He's going to harass me. I already know. Anytime he has one of those three names, he's going to be my enemy. I have never met a guy with one of those names who has not harassed me or bullied me in some way or tormented me in some way. Never. He always has one of those three names. So let me describe what Darius looked like. Okay, so think of a mix between Terrence Howard and Urkel. Okay, so that's how he looked. So he was kind of similar to my height. He was maybe around 6 foot, very skinny. So like toothpick arms, toothpick legs. He was shaped like me, basically. So we were both two light-skinned people working in the office who were shaped like toothpicks. Okay, so he's the toothpick man. I'm the toothpick woman. Great. So he's just a regular run-of-the-mill, skinny, nerdy guy. So you know the guys that wear, you know how they have the shirts that look like a tablecloth? You know those shirts where it looks like a picnic blanket and then it has like the flannel and the checkers on it and then it buttons all the way up? Yeah, so he would wear clothes like that. And then he had the low fade. I'm telling you, anytime there's a guy named Darius, if his name is Darius and he has a low fade, I already know what's up. I already know his personality. He's going to be the type of guy that harasses me. He's going to be sneaking behind the scenes. I'm telling you, those three names, Darius, Michael, or David. Watch out for the Dariuses. Watch out for the Michaels and the Davids. So that's just kind of his aesthetic. But I noticed that he didn't really talk to me at all, like at the job. And that's fine. You know, everybody's not obligated to talk to me. And plus, I was on the phones being tortured for 8 hours a day. So it's like I don't even have time to talk to anybody because the phone is ringing every 5 seconds and I have to pick it up and pretend like I'm happy when I'm not. So I was like, you know what? My life is cooked right now. I'm pretty much screwed. So let me try to make the best of this. So I decorated my little cubicle area. And it wasn't even an entire cubicle. I didn't even have the little wall part. You know the wall that separates one cubicle from another? I didn't even have a full wall. It was literally like a half a wall that separates you from the next person. So they could literally look over and they'd be looking directly at you, eye to eye. So it's not even like I had a full cubicle. But I decorated my cubicle. I made it all pink. You know, it was super cute or whatever. I still would dress professional when I went into that job. I would wear like cute little blazers, and all the other girls, they dress cute too. Oh, and by the way, in terms of what other girls were working at the call center and like working on my team, so there were mostly African American girls. They were mostly like MLS women basically, or like white. They were either African American or they were like white girls. So that's actually very rare because I was like, wait a minute. How is it that I'm in my hometown and the one building I work in is the one building where it seems like every black person in the entire city is working here? So that was rare. But I was working in the call center and this one guy, his name was Michael. I'm telling you, watch out for the Dariuses and the Michaels. So literally there was this guy named Michael who I knew from kindergarten. And I literally had not seen this Michael guy in probably, I don't know, maybe 20 years or something. So, but because my hometown is so small and there's like nobody black, if you meet somebody and you know their last name, like you kind of know people by their family names. So this Michael guy, he had that typical Michael aesthetic. He wore the glasses. He was the type, he was a short guy from what I remember. He was a short MLS guy with the glasses or whatever. He would wear the high water pants, except he didn't wear khakis. He used to wear like gray pants. So kind of like a gray version of the typical like golfer. Think of like a golfer, that sort of aesthetic. Like he wears golf clothing. He looks like he's about to be at a retirement home. He looks like somebody's grandpa. You know the guys that wear like the sweater vests and stuff. So he was that type of guy. And apparently the Michael guy, he worked at another building that was a part of the same company. And I guess he worked in a call center as well. And he saw my name on one of the little customer service reports. So you know how if you work at one of those call centers, you're supposed to take notes and all that bullshit? And it's like, okay, this is pointless, but whatever. So you take notes. They literally track everything you do like a psycho. So they're literally watching you on your computer. So anytime you type notes, it'll say like, you know, this note was typed by Exoticals United. So it said my name in there. This guy saw my name on a note and he decided to call the building that I worked in. And my manager picked up, Darius. He decided to call the building and he was like, oh, hey, I was calling to speak to Exoticals United. Like, does she work there? So this guy has not seen me in 20 years. He calls my job and then he was just calling to say hello, basically. And it's like, dude, I work at a call center. I'm already on the verge of being fired because if you're at the call center, you can't even log out of the phones for more than like 22 minutes a day. So they basically have you on like this slave mentality when you're working in the call center. It's like, oh, I got to go back to the cotton fields. Whoops, I'm in the call center. I can't go to the bathroom. I can't even go boo-boo for more than 15 minutes because then I'm going to get written up. So this Michael guy, he calls the phone and then I pick up the phone because Darius transferred the call to me and I'm like, oh, hi, like this is Exoticals United. How can I help you? And he's like, oh, hey, Exoticals United. Remember me, Michael, from so-and-so school back when we were younger. And I'm thinking to myself, are you freaking insane? Why would you randomly call somebody just to try to say hello to them? And he's like, yeah, I just wanted to see how you're doing. What do you mean you want to see how I'm doing? I'm working at a call center. Clearly I'm doing bad, Michael. Clearly both of us have failed in life. So what do you mean, how am I doing? You already know I'm down bad and that's why I'm here. So there's no need to even ask the question. We're both working in call centers. We are both working as cubicle slaves and that's it. We're both sitting in cubicles with a headset on. Like, I don't understand why you need to ask me anything. So I kind of like rushed this Michael guy off the phone because I needed to get back to doing my actual work so that I could make my pennies that I was making at that job. So then a few minutes later, lo and behold, my manager, Darius, walks in. Okay, so you know how like some guys, they wear those khaki pants and whenever they walk, it makes a swishing noise. It's like shh, 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 shh. Like when they're walking, and then they'll have on like the loafers. He would wear like those, I don't know how to describe them, but they're kind of like loafers or like boat shoes or something. I just call them grandpa shoes. So they almost look like Crocs, but sometimes they're made out of suede or like some sort of brown leather. So anytime he was swishing around the office, I already knew like, oh shit, he's going to walk up to my cubicle. He's going to ask me what I'm doing. He's going to single me out of everybody. So he walks into the office like, shh, 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 shh. He shuffles into the back call center area and he's like, oh, hey, Exoticals United. Did you get that call from earlier? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And he was like, yeah, he said that he knew you from when you guys were younger. And basically, I was embarrassed because I'm like, oh my God, now I'm over here looking like I'm flirting with guys on the job or something. So do you see how guys named Darius and guys named Michael, they just come in and they just fuck everything up? Do you see how they just completely ruin everything just by like existing? So I just played it off like, oh yeah, like he knows my family, you know, he's just a family friend. He was just calling to say hello, but you know, I didn't talk for that long. So I kind of blew it off and I noticed that after that, my manager Darius, he gradually started like nitpicking at me. So for example, I would walk into the office. By the way, it was like 90 degrees. This was the summertime, okay? It was a summer temp job. And everybody was wearing tank tops. I mean, it was business casual, but everybody could wear like tank tops in the office. You could wear sandals in the office. You just can't wear flip-flops. So you could wear peep toe, whatever type of shoes that show your toes. It was basically appropriate for the office because it's summertime. It's hot. So everybody else got to wear whatever they wanted. So I walk into the office. I will tell you exactly what I was wearing, head to toe. I was wearing a black blazer, a black pencil skirt, a button-up tank top underneath the blazer. I never took the blazer off. You couldn't even see my arms. I was wearing a button-up shirt, and I was wearing flat sandals, like flat open-toe sandals. They were not flip-flops. They were kind of the nice version of like a sandal. So it was no different than what you would see the other women wearing. And I remember that morning specifically, the other girls, they were like, oh my gosh, Exoticals United, you look so cute. Like all the other girls were complimenting me in the office. They were like, oh, you look like a model. Like I love your outfit. And I was like, oh, thanks. So I was just minding my business. And then who comes swishing around the corner? You already know. Darius comes swishing around. And he's like, excuse me, Exoticals United, I see that you're wearing sandals today. You're not supposed to wear open-toe shoes. And I was like, oh, well, I saw Honey wearing open-toe shoes. Honey was one of the other girls that like worked there. I was like, Honey was wearing open-toe shoes, and I've seen other girls wearing like the peep-toe heels, so I thought I could wear these. And he was like, I mean, technically it's a part of the dress code. Like you can wear them, but you know, I'm just warning you. You might not want to wear those types of shoes in the office because you never know what could be on the floor. And I was just like, oh, I'm fine. Like, I don't think that there are any trip hazards or anything. Because in the office, they would always talk about, like, oh, you don't want to have trip hazards. You know how they tell you, like, to move stuff out of the way so that you don't fall over? So the office, it's a freaking call center. Why would there be a trip hazard just randomly in the middle of the call center? So I felt like he was picking on me. But yeah, so I kind of pushed back and I was like, no, like, I'm going to be fine basically because I'm just sitting in the call center. And he could tell that I was slightly annoyed at him singling me out. And he was like, okay. He shrugged his shoulders and kind of put his hands in the air. He was like, okay, well, if you end up lifting one of those boxes over there and you drop them on your toes, don't say that I didn't warn you. And remember, all the other ladies in the office had been wearing sandals up until this point. I was not the only one wearing sandals. In fact, I was wearing flat sandals. I wasn't wearing strappy, high heel, like sexy stilettos or anything. No, they were literally flat grandma sandals. So it's not like I even had my whole foot out. But when he randomly made the comment about, oh, I could potentially drop a box on my toes. Darius, I work in a call center. I'm literally sitting at a cubicle with my toes underneath the desk. Why would I be lifting boxes? Do I look like the fucking maintenance woman to you? Do I look like a janitor to you? No. So I wouldn't be lifting any boxes. I didn't say that. But I basically did say like, oh no, I've never had to lift any boxes here. And by the way, he would know that because he's my direct manager. So why would he randomly bring up, oh, if you end up lifting any boxes? Darius, you're the one who hired me. You know that I don't lift boxes. You know what my job description is. You're probably one of the people who wrote it. So why are you trying to suddenly pretend that, oh, I might be lifting boxes and so I can't wear sandals? And also, why are you thinking about my toes? Out of all the different things you could be thinking about working at this company, you decide to focus on Exoticals United's toes. Not to mention the fact that I'm in a call center, so I literally can't even get up. I can't get up to go pee. I can't get up and go boo-boo. I have to time myself on my breaks, so I'm barely even outside. I'm literally in the call center abyss every single day. I'm sitting in the back corner, sitting in a cave, basically. So nobody's even looking at my sandals. Now, if somebody was in the front, maybe if they're a receptionist or something, like I can see how, maybe they might be a little stricter with their dress codes, but no. And not to mention the fact that I looked very professional. I was wearing a suit. My hair was freshly done. That was back when I used to wear the silk press. I had my fresh Tia and Tamara silk press. So it's like, what are you talking? There is nothing unprofessional about this. There's nothing that's going against the dress code. Nobody's going to see me. I don't even see any customers or anything that are at the front. I'm literally working in the abyss, answering 75 calls per day. So it's like, why are you even paying attention to what I'm wearing? And why didn't you call out any of the other women who wear their toes out? I mean, the other women, they had their toes out all the time. There was one big girl that worked there. She had her toes out. She's got her bunions showing. Her nail polish is chipped on her feet. She's got crust on the bottom of her foot. The whole office smells like corn chips. So I don't hear you saying anything about her toes. Why aren't you talking about her toes? Why aren't you talking about their sandals? Why don't you care about the other women's outfits? Why is it that only my outfit matters and something as tiny as my sandals? So I basically, I didn't say any of that to him. I said it in a nicer way, like, yeah, I've never had to lift boxes. And he was like, well, what about those printer boxes right there? Like, you may have to lift one of those boxes if you're printing something. And I'm thinking, first of all, Darius, that's bullshit because why would I be printing something if my job is to work in the call center? Not to mention the fact that I'm literally built like a toothpick. I literally have toothpick arms and toothpick legs. So out of all of the people in this office, why would they recruit me to lift one of the giant boxes so I could refill the printer? They literally had people where it was their job to refill the printer. Not to mention the fact that there were grown-ass 200-pound men who worked in the call center who could easily lift those boxes and put them in the printer. So I felt like he was just trying to find something to nitpick at, but I didn't think anything of it because I was like, you know what? It's not a big deal. Maybe he's just having a bad day. I don't know. So I just keep coming into work and minding my business, dealing with all these bullshit calls. And Darius walks up to my desk again. And he's like, oh, excuse me, Exoticals United. So he says it in his little Urkel accent. He's like, excuse me, Exoticals United. And I'm like, oh, yeah, hi, Darius. And he's like, I noticed that you logged out of the clock at 4:57 yesterday, and you're supposed to stay logged into the phones until 5 p.m. And I'm thinking, what the fuck is wrong with you, bro? First of all, I log into the phones early. Like, I was working an 8 to 5 type of job with like an hour lunch or something. So I'm logging into the phones 5 minutes early sometimes, 7 minutes early. So you don't give a fuck about me logging in early, but suddenly you want to come and reprimand me because I logged out of the phone at 4:57. Not to mention the fact that my freaking job ends at 5. My schedule is from 8 to 5. And this company is so outdated and so badly set up to the point where I can't even clock out from my computer. I can't clock out from my phone. I have to walk 3 minutes to go to the hallway to clock out in one of those Chronos devices. One of those bullshit devices. It looks like a calculator glued to the wall. I have to go and clock out on one of those. So if I log out of the phone at 4:57, by the time I walk all the way down the hall and wait in line behind everybody else trying to clock out, it's going to be past 5. It'll literally be like 5:05 by the time I clock out. That's how ghetto the setup was at this company. That is how outdated this entire setup was. I couldn't even clock out from being in the call center. I literally had to physically get up and walk out and wait behind other people. And by the way, he knows this. I literally have seen countless other people getting up off of the phones at 4:50, 4:45, 4:55, and they would try to hurry up and get to the time clock so they didn't have to wait in line to clock out. So that was totally normal. Everybody else in the entire call center, working in the front desk as well, all of those people were getting up before it was exactly 5 p.m. They were damn sure not staying logged into the phones until 5 p.m. Nobody's doing that shit. Because it was one of those jobs where they don't want you to get overtime, and especially for me, being a temp, no, they don't want to pay overtime. They don't want to pay, they can't even afford to pay me a livable wage. And it's like, you decided to bypass all of the dozens of other people in the office who have been clocking out at all odd hours of the day. They've been clocking out at random times. They're definitely clocking out at 4:55, 4:54, 4:53. Because it doesn't affect your paycheck. Like in the state that I was working in, if you're within about 7 minutes, it doesn't affect your paycheck. It's paid in like 15-minute increments or whatever. So it's like these people are clocking out before 4:57. I'm staying logged into the phones until 4:57. So I'm just getting up so I have time to actually walk and wait in the line. But no, you decide to come and single me out of everybody. So at that point, I was like, okay, clearly this guy just wants to pick on me. But I still ignored it. I was like, well, maybe maybe his managers are coming against him. You know, maybe his managers are coming down on him, and so he has to make it more strict. But I found out he was not doing that shit with other people in the office. He wasn't calling out all the other girls saying, oh, you logged out at 4:57. You have to stay here sitting at the desk, logged into the phones until exactly 5 p.m., and then you can log out and then get up and clock out. He didn't say that to anybody else. He only did it to me. And then as the weeks went on, I noticed that like whenever I was having fun in the back office, during the few times that I was having fun, it was very rare for me to actually have fun whenever he was there. But the few times that I was talking with the other girls and laughing and stuff, he would always come walking back. By the way, his office was not even in the call center area. His office was like in another area, kind of closed off or whatever. So it's like, you can't even hear what's going on. Or like you had to be really listening for my voice directly in order for you to get up, open your door, walk out of your office, and come into the call center area in the back. Because literally every single time I started talking, every time I was like laughing with the coworkers, or like if it was my 15-minute break or something, he would instantly come out into the call center area and be like, oh, Exoticals United, what are you working on right now? And it's like, why are you calling me out? There are 6 other people sitting right next to me. Why are you directly calling me by name? So he was one of those guys where it's almost like he didn't want me to have fun or something, or like, I don't know. He just seemed like he wanted to ruin the fun. So I actually stopped talking as much. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm already like being reprimanded for clocking out at 4:57 instead of 5 p.m. Actually, it wasn't even clocking out. It was logging out of the phones, not clocking out for work. I was still clocking out at like 5. So I was like, I'm already being reprimanded for that. apparently I'm banned from wearing sandals. And now, every time I'm laughing, he's coming into the office and asking me directly what I am specifically working on. So I started getting quiet and like just doing my work. And I already told you guys that whenever I'm at a job, depending on how many times they annoy me, that's how many times I'm going to apply for another job. So I started coming in a little bit early and I'd be looking for other jobs, trying to transfer to a different department, transfer to work in another city, because it was one of those companies where they had buildings in multiple cities, multiple states. So it's a big company. And I remember I was minding my business one day, and then here comes Darius lurking around the corner in his button-up picnic shirt. And he's like, excuse me, Exoticals United, I noticed that you parked your car in the parking lot across from the building. You're not allowed to park there. And I was like, shocked because first of all, how the fuck would this guy know what kind of car I'm driving? Okay, let me describe the building. This building at the office that we worked in, so there actually was no parking. You had to park on the street, or a lot of people, they would like take public transportation. And so the people who did drive, like all the other women who worked there, the older ladies who worked there, they were like, oh yeah, we always park in the lot across the street, or we park in between like this building and another building kind of near their guest parking area. So if somebody wanted to come out and try to give tickets, they don't know which building you're parking at. So nobody had ever had any problems with parking in either of those lots. And I was parked at the one across the street. And so I was like, what parking lot? Like what parking lot do you think you saw my car at, basically? And he was like, oh, do you drive the XYZ type of car? And did you park in the lot across the street? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, well, yeah, you're not supposed to park there. They're going to give you a warning. They might tow your car. So you may want to go move your car right now. And by the way, other people who worked at the company are the ones who told me to park there. And they were also parked there. And I told him this, and he was like, well, they're not supposed to be parking there either. Okay, well, then why don't you go talk to them as well? Why are you only singling me out once again? So I go and I move my car. And I try to park it in another random place. And so at this point, I was like, yeah, I'm ignoring this manager. He's so annoying. He gets on my nerves. Like everything I do, he has to randomly nitpick it. And so then about a week later, he walks up to me again. And he's like, oh, excuse me, Exoticals United. Did you park in between this building and the building next door in the lot behind us? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, oh, well, you're not supposed to park there. And at this point, I was like, okay, well, that's where all the other people are parking. So I'm just parking next to all the other cars. And he did that thing again where he's like, okay, well, don't say I didn't warn you. So if you end up getting a ticket, at least I tried to tell you not to park there. And so I just ignored him. I kept coming into work. I kept applying for other jobs. I was being more quiet than normal because I was like, everything I do and say apparently is going to be scrutinized. And I had only been working there for about 2.5 months at that point, but I had got so annoyed by his behavior and him like either ignoring me completely and then like being nice to everybody and then like basically only talking to me whenever it's something negative. So because I had been applying for so many jobs, I actually got hired. I got promoted because I was a temp. So basically the job I was working there at that call center, it was temp to hire. And they actually wanted to hire me on full time, like working there in that office. And I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not staying at this job. Working with Satan's son named Darius. He literally looks like he is the child of Lucifer with a tablecloth shirt on. So no, I don't want to stay here and work, actually. So I ended up applying for another job. I got hired. And you know how they send out the email like, oh, so-and-so just put in her 2 weeks because, she's going to be leaving. She got promoted. So they sent out that email like, oh, congratulations to Exoticals United, who's going to be working as a so-and-so coordinator at the other, at this other department, basically. So once I got hired and I put in my 2 weeks, I started to like kind of relax because I was like, oh, thank God I'm getting out of here. And so I started kind of having more fun with the people in the back office again. And they're like, oh, Exoticals United, like we have to throw a potluck for you for when it's your last day. And, I was just talking to everybody. And then here comes Darius lurking from behind the corner. He just pops up out of nowhere. And he's like, wow, Exoticals United, that's the most I've heard you speak in the last 30 days. I've never heard you talk that much. And of course, you've never heard me talk that much, Darius. It's because you banned me from wearing sandals. I can't do anything. I can't log out of the phones. I'm going to get written up. I have to stay trapped at my desk until exactly 5 p.m. Every time I try to talk, you come back here and basically try to imply that I'm not doing my job. I didn't say any of that, but it's like, it was so interesting how he was so desperate. He came off like he was trying to be controlling or something, or trying to exercise his dominance. And I think part of the reason too was because I was clearly overqualified for that job. It was literally just a temp job. That wasn't even my only job, by the way. I was working 2 jobs at the time. I was working that job during the day, and then I was working a graveyard shift job at night. So it's like, dude, this is just a temp job. I'm better than this environment. And so I'm not going to be here long term. And have you ever noticed that some managers, some male managers who feel inferior to you socially, they will try to dominate and subjugate you because they know that your social status will take you elsewhere. They know that you're not trapped working at that job. They know damn well that I was not going to spend the rest of my life working at a call center. They knew damn well that I was going to get promoted or like find a real job or whatever, something that aligns more with like my skill set. And so by this time, it was still my 2 weeks. It was like my last 2 weeks there. And I was like relaxed or whatever, just talking about everything. Then I noticed that the same manager, the same one that literally spent the last 2.5 months tormenting me, the same one that was a complete a-hole from day one. You started off smiling your ass off in the interview, and then you became Satan's son when I started working for you. Now that I'm putting in my 2 weeks, now you want to come and laugh it up whenever I'm in the office. So he randomly flipped to like trying to be all nice since I was about to be leaving. So he started being nice. He started like trying to get to know me, like asking more questions about me when I was kind of like talking in the back with everybody. And I remember I was talking in a group with the girls, and they were talking about how old they were, and they were all talking about their kids. And so somebody was like, wait, Exoticals United, how old are you? And I think I was about, 23 at the time. So I was like, oh, I'm 23. And then everybody was going around saying their age. And then Darius randomly brings up his age as well. And he's just like including himself in the conversation like crazy. And then people start asking like, oh, do you have kids? So I don't have kids. So I was like, no, I don't have kids. And everybody was answering. And it turns out little Mr. Goody Two-Shoe Darius, who's so obsessed with all the rules, he's so obsessed with following all the rules. He seems like he's just one of those quote unquote good guys. Turns out this guy has a whole child that nobody had ever known about. Some of those ladies had been working at that job for like years. He had been working there for I think a year or something. And some of the women didn't even know that he had a whole kid. So you know how when a person has a child, usually they put the pictures of the kid up in their office, or like they have their daughter on the background of their phone or something like that. Like this guy, he had no signs of showing his daughter. He had nothing with his family on it. And so when he said he had a kid, I was like, oh, wow, I'm surprised by that. I didn't know you had kids. And he was like, oh, yeah, do you want to see a picture? And like he starts showing me pictures in his photo album of his daughter. And I was so thrown off because I'm like, first of all, why were you so rude to me the entire time I'm working here? And now that I'm leaving because of your fuckery, now suddenly you're like all nice, and then you want to be all kind and show me photos of your hidden daughter that you never talked about because clearly you're ashamed of her. And then the icing on the cake is literally right before I left, this guy says he wanted to get to know me outside of work. And I'm like, what the? I got so pissed off because I was like, so all of this entire drama that has literally been happening for the entire 2 months I've worked here, I've never had a job that had so much drama with a male manager, nitpicking everything, wanting me to follow every rule just for you to say that you want to get to know me basically. And like, it was a pleasure working with me and all that when I'm about to leave. Do you see the incredible hypocrisy? Do you see the incel mindset? And there were other MLS women that worked in the office, but I feel like, I don't know if maybe I stood out because, he's a toothpick nerd and I'm also a toothpick nerd. So maybe he felt like, we're two peas in a pod. So maybe he felt like he could play those types of games with me versus the other MLS women who were kind of different culturally. So I don't know if it was that. I don't know what that was, but that had to be the most annoying encounter I had ever had with an MLS male manager. And by the way, that's not the only time that that's happened. That's happened several times. So, has this ever happened to any of you guys? Have you ever gone into a job and the manager was some sort of incel or something, or maybe he like was attracted to you, but then like he didn't know how to handle it, so he just wanted to be an asshole? Have you ever dealt with that? What do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.